Today we're taking a look at George Silver's governors and how they can apply to a fantasy adventurer trying to survive in the wild. The governors are kind of, in my opinion, kind of an evolution of the earlier mentioned grounds. If you haven't already, I would recommend you watching that essay first and then coming to this one. Both of them are very much linked, and you really want to watch both of them to get the full picture, because they're quite linked and both are very important to not just surviving in swordsmanship, but just combat in general. George Silver lists the four governors, which are primarily in basic instructions, as judgment, measure, fly in, fly out. Those two are also in themselves very linked and inseparable. He follows up and kind of expands on these governors in brief instructions, specifically on page 9. The four governors are those that follow. The first governor is judgment, which is to know when your adversary can reach you and when not, and when you can do the like to him, and to know by the goodness or badness of his lying what he can do and when and how he can perform it. The second governor is measure. Measure is the better to know how to make your space true, to defend yourself, and to offend your enemy. I'll expand that more later. The third and fourth governors are a two-fold mind. When you press in for your enemy, for as you have a mind to go forward, as so you must have at that instant a mind to fly backward upon any action that should be offered or done by your adversary. This right here is why I think Silver does apply to the English system. I'll explain more on different things, but the two-fold mind, I think, are like the basis of what makes the English system the English system. We'll continue on. Focusing on the governors, which is the latter of the grounds and governors, it shares a lot with the first one, like I said, being an evolution of it. The governors are the principles that every fencer should have in their head, regardless of whatever they're fighting with. Everything else we discuss in this essay, or essays in the future, are based off of these basic principles. I have my own interpretations of what the governors actually mean. The first one, judgment, is mostly a general sense of your area, of your arena, what is around you, where you can be hit, where you can hit somebody else, the general sense of just the terrain, the arena, and what actions both of you are prepared to do. A good example of this is if I am in open fight in this guard up here, most of the time I am going to do a strike, whether as a quarter, coming down diagonal, or straight down like this. If someone has their blade pointed forward like that, I can usually expect a thrust or a two-action cut. That was mean by judgment, of understanding the nuance and minutiae of the fight, of everything around you as well as your two opponents. A good example of measure is you and your opponent are at distance between each other. Say one of you has your sword pointed at the other, and the other one has the sword somewhere off the thing. This one could be considered in measure. This guy definitely isn't. It's the preparedness for whatever is coming. To get into measure with this guy, he's going to have to point his blade forward or be ready, have his blade ready to intercept whatever this guy does. Measure does flow into fly out, but they also really control the measure as well. Fly in, fly out is a group of concepts that are inseparable. Fly in is obviously to go into distance, whether in time with a hand, body, or foot, which I'll talk about later. Fly in is getting into distance to do an action. Fly out is the opposite of getting out of that distance, out of that measure, to either avoid a strike or to get yourself in a safe enough space. This sort of thing of like being not bouncy, but being very cautious and careful with where you are in the fight. If you're too close to an opponent, they can strike you. If you're too far away, you're okay, they can't hit you. This really gets into the times that Silver mentions later, which deserves its own essay. Time with the hand, body, foot, and feet. We'll get into that into a different essay, but this really goes into that of being able to get in, do your business, and get out. These last two governors of the fly in, fly out, as I mentioned, are I think why Silver is a medieval fighter. This can be proven, or at least offered evidence by some of the other treatises. If we take a look at Ladal perfectly says this in almost every one of his chases or plays. The first point of the counter of Lidall's first chase of the Stevie Thurston modernization. A prophet at his face standing still, then set in the right leg with a rake and a quarter, voiding back with a leg with a quarter, then void by your left leg and stand at your stop. Lidall in this chase, in this sort of play right here, steps in, does his business, steps back, and then does an additional step back. Silver talks more about general offensive advice, of which you can kind of put into each of these governors. In chapter 2.1, Silver says, first, when you come into the field to encounter with the enemy, observe well the scope and evenness and unevenness of the ground. Put yourself in readiness with your weapon, before your enemy comes within distance. Set the sun in his face. Traverse if possible you can, still remembering your governors. This would go under judgment and possibly measure of getting a general sense of the area while being prepared with your weapon before your enemy comes into a distance to attack you. Let all your line be such as show best like yourself, ever considering what fight your enemy charges at you, but be sure to keep your distance, so that neither head, arms, hands, body, nor legs be within his reach, but that he must first of necessity put in his foot or feet, at which time you have the choice of 3 actions which you endanger him and go for yourself. I'll talk about those actions later in a different essay, they're not important right now. To base it all down, to dumb it down, judgment covers the area surrounding and what your enemy's doing. Measure covers your line and guard, depending on what you found out by judgment. And fly in, fly out covers any forward or backwards action, whether an attack or avoid. All the grounds, and all the governors just put together are the basis of what makes combat. One of the things I've really been following in my life is you rarely win battle in the moment. You win battles in the weeks, days, or like hours before the actual moment. You put yourself in the place, in the preparedness to complete this action far ahead of whenever the action actually takes place. This is how you use these grounds and governors. You put all these together to build a plan, to train, and to win a sword fight. You put all these together to get yourself in the best possible place. Thank you all for watching this essay. If you haven't already, definitely check out the ground essay right here. Both these essays are very much linked. Thank you all for watching. God bless, and praying for your adventures.